guys? Welcome to Elevate Elite, the Basecamp podcast. My name's Donovan, and today I'm going to be talking to Mr. Everette Brewer, one of the best guys that I know in solar, one of my top friends, top mentor in the industry. I've known this guy now for probably about 5 or 6 years, and we've hung out a few times, got on a couple podcasts together, talked a ton, and now I get to have him on my own podcast. What's going on, Everett?
How's it going, man? Good to be here. Good to
Yeah, man.
connect. Yeah.
Thanks for being on the podcast. It feels like it's been a minute since we've talked last, so I'm excited to jump into what's changed.
I don't know, man. You gotta, with all this busyness and craziness, we still gotta remember who the good guys are. So
That's
get you
it,
through the
man.
muck. Yeah. So
Yeah, the industry's not that old. Everett and I are actually both in the solar industry. Mr. Everett owns a battery company called Stores AI, Stores Power, and it's one of the best battery systems in solar, from my opinion, that you could possibly buy. Just based on the efficiency, the way that it works, the way that it is a little bit different than like Tesla systems or Generac batteries or what have you. Everett and I believe John, right? Is John your partner still?
so John's on the Watt Hub side, so on the
Okay,
commercial and CNI utility scale side. So
nice.
yep.
Yeah, and you guys have pretty much like bootstrapped this company and built it to what it is now from the point of where you started it, didn't you?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, Watt Hub's been around now almost 18 years and Stores Power's almost 14 years. So
Holy
uh,
smokes, man. That's
yeah,
like the
it's been
beginning of the
time
industry.
time flies. Yeah.
Yeah, solar's really only been popular in America, I think, for about like 25, 26 years. And it all
Yep.
really started in California. So you guys have been around for the majority of that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, and ultimately too, it starts acting like dog years at some point
Yeah.
where,
I
man, the stuff you got to absorb and duck and dodge and just keep trudging through. I mean, man, it really teaches you a lot about yourself and ultimately a lot about the people that are around you. So always appreciated that about you as well.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I know that there's a lot of people in the industry that have come and gone, and the people that remain in the industry, I believe, actually do have a passion for solar. They have a passion for this industry. Part of my passion is helping homeowners and making sure that everybody is taken care of post install. And it doesn't seem like anybody has that affinity as I do.
Yeah.
But it is something that will become very popular in the future. You're already seeing people stepping into maintenance. You're already seeing people step into adding on things like batteries and critter guard and stuff like that. So, talking more about building this business now for almost over 2 decades. Uh, there's a lot of changes. There's a lot to take on. I mean, emotionally, family wise, kid wise. I mean, you have your ups and downs. Some years are amazing, and some years not so amazing. And when
Yeah.
you're on that climb, and unfortunately, sometimes we slip as business owners or entrepreneurs. How do you handle that? And what is the thing that you step back and kind of use to bring yourself back to that, like, I know I can do this, I know I'm capable, we've done this, we need to keep going.
Man, I think that's kind of a multifaceted answer in my opinion. Is the fact is that first off, we're in the people business. And, despite the fact the service and the outcomes that we all have goals and aspirations for, it still comes down to the individuals. And, um, you always hear the phrase that a man will do more for his wife than he'll do for himself, or
Yep.
for a family, or for children, for their parents, their brothers and sisters, those kind of things. And realistically is that there is no excuse. There's no I can't. There's not a no in general. Is that I'll figure it out because you have to. You have a role and responsibility and a fiduciary for your employees. The patriarch for your family to make sure that you're actually doing anything and everything you possibly can because um, when you don't, which I've been there, where I know I could have done more, it wears on someone. It will
Mm,
literally sit on your shoulders, and for that reason, I just can't let myself be in that position ever again. For the sake is just the way that burdens me. That burden is way higher than the burden of the weight that you have to do to keep pushing forward. And I think that's one of the key things that we all have to remember is that, what we're doing. A lot of people say, what's your why? Well, that's great and all. The thing is, though, is it's the aspiration and the consistency of figuring out your how. People get
mm,
too to in the details of this is my why, and there's all this talk and emotion into it, but there's no action. And that's where I think the biggest differentiation is in some of the leadership and mentors that I've had in my life is that there's actually taken action. And those are the type of people that I've been blessed to put myself around, including those responsibilities that actually elevate me and keep me moving forward in the fact when things get tough. And so I think that's something that comes down to ultimately meeting your goals is understanding your people. And then for that, you'll do more than them for you than you'll ever do for yourself.
Such a beautiful answer, man. Thank you for that. Very succinctly put as well. I remember somebody said something along the lines of, you owe it to your bloodline to do what is the responsibility that you were set to go do. And so to try to figure out what that is really difficult, especially because like I started entrepreneurship and business ownership when I was 18.
Mhm.
Jumped straight into property inspections for JP Morgan Chase and Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, got my teeth kicked in. I made about like 250, 300 a year. And then all of a sudden, 3 years after, JP Morgan Chase filed for bank or not file for bankruptcy, but removed the property inspection from my portal. And they were like, hey, we're not going to be sending these out to you guys. We have some things to handle. And my business just went away. Like I lost all
Yeah.
my money. And so the do part is very difficult. Long story short, Nike talks about just do it. And it's like, what the heck is that? Like
Yeah.
I have this why, and a lot of motivational speakers and life coaches and gurus talk about find your why. And if your why doesn't make you cry, you don't have a why big enough, right? And then you
Yeah.
find that why, and then you're like, I still don't know what to do.
Exactly.
You kind of spin your wheels, and you try to find that next shiny object because you hope that shiny object is going to pan out, and you think it's going to like skyrocket you to success, and it's just not. All of these things, regardless of how good the idea is, at the end of the day, still takes massive action, takes
Mhm.
massive responsibility, massive self-awareness. And I don't know if it seems easier when you have a family to find that why, to find the how, to find the do. That seems easier. But for like a lot of like young guys, especially at Basecamp, 18, 19, 20 years old, they don't have any of these responsibilities.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily have those same motivating driving factors that maybe you and I both have. Did you have those motivating factors back when you were 19 years ago starting the business out, or do you believe it was more like divination, or was it like influence from your circle, or what do you think that was that made you keep going or find your how?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I kind of had a different upbringing in the regards to some of the challenges that our family had. So I actually earned or learned this early on. So to give you a couple examples. So my parents owned 13 different small businesses since I was a kid. So there's already this entrepreneurial kind of approach within the family unit that made sure that, if we didn't go out and get to work with your family, then there wasn't food on the table. And so that gives you your first why when you're young before you're even, 10 years old. And then we had an experience to where my little brother was diagnosed with cancer at age 10.
Wow.
And I was young, no driver's license, anything whatsoever, but yet I'm the oldest of, in this situation, 8 kids. There's 8 kids of us. Two of them we inherited from a family member that had passed away. And so when my parents were actually meeting with doctors and sitting with specialists and going through cancer treatments, we still owned a business. We still had to make sure that we had food on the table. In this case, I had to make sure that there was income to continually support my mom and dad down in Phoenix and down to all the primary children's hospitals and specialists that could still be affordable and attainable in that case. So I had a why way early on that just gave me that driver. So I was up loading trucks at 4 or 5 a.m. I'm unloading trucks and deliveries at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning when they came in, get the drivers out, get kids ready for school, how to get them to school, get them dropped off. I actually took leave. I actually got my GD my freshman year in high school. I missed a lot of school through those experiences, but yet I knew I wanted to accomplish that. So sat with my mom one day and said, "Hey, We tried to go to a charter school, but yet life kept pulling us back in where I needed to go help the family more. I said, "Hey, can I just go get my GED?" And my family said yes, and I went and tested out and went right back to work. So I've been working since a young age. So so to your question, to some of this younger demographic, now that I've got kids that are my oldest is married and I've got a 12-year-old and now a 4-year-old as of over the weekend. And so trying to understand kind of that this day and age right now of what that why is and what that aspiration is at this point. Um, sometimes these kids are going to have a lot more success and small victories through schooling. Like one of my kids does really well with that. My middle child, he's got some special needs. He was down diagnosed with something called Dandy Walker syndrome, where uh, he's got weakness in his extremities. We've had 11 major surgeries for him. He's got some delayed learning. And so that gives you a why. But yet, in this case, this kid has found his own path thus far to where he just has passion behind the people. And so we can see that the folks around him, and as we go and elevate these kids, we kind of have to be keen to where that way we can help kind of guide and influence and help them find their own path and create their own set of confidence and self-worth. Self-worth, I believe, comes from a point of being able to accomplish something to the end. I know a lot of people that are 80% guys in my life. They're brilliant, great minds, tons of creativity, and they falter out of the 80%. And these guys have challenges with their lives, their marriages, their financial situations, etc., because they just give up. And so if you can just find ways to get something to the finish line, that's going to create self-worth and going to carry you into your next phase or stage or opportunity a hell of a lot farther than any other entrepreneur can actually give you. Because this is something you can't be given. You actually have to be influenced and identified and then supported. Yes, but it takes your own gumption and action to get to the finish line, and that's how you actually have success in anything you apply in. So, a little backstory on me, and ultimately, some of my concepts and ideas around that I've seen successful in my own family.
Great. I really resonate with that on the level of dealing with health factors. That was one of the things that really woke me up early in my younger years. I'm only 31, but when I was 18, I started my home inspection business, and then when that went to the wayside, I started caring for older people. Became a caretaker at an old folks home, and I was able to sit around these people that had health issues, and they were 75, 85, 95 years old, and they would tell you stories similar to what you're telling me here. And one thing that I saw that was one of the bigger impacts as to why people end up finding out exactly what it is that they need to do and how to do it is because of those health factors. Their wife got sick or they got sick or their family got sick, and it was just like, I need to do something that is more than what I'm currently doing. I
Mhm.
don't know how to make a $350,000 a year salary unless I'm an engineer, unless I'm a doctor, unless I've already ascended to that false summit that we talk about in Elevate Elite,
Yeah,
where it's like you've accomplished it. You're there. You got the degree. Like you are an engineer. You are a doctor. You're successful now. But then you unfortunately end up on this hamster wheel, I've noticed, which is like you just can't get off of it. You have to sustain that life now. And
yeah.
so, going back to those health factors, my question for you would be like, how do you deal with those stressors when something like that comes up, especially with your own children, and then trying to navigate that and keeping your wife and yourself and good spirits and staying positive and motivated to be able to see the other side of that. You're talking about that 80% washout. How do you become that 20% that still keeps like trying to stay half full as opposed to half empty?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be significantly different for everybody in any way, shape, or form. But I mean, immediately, I think um, first identifying your circle and really having them understand you in return, which also requires some vulnerability in that process, allows us as just, I think, human beings to um, get the responses that we need to fill our cups, right?
Mm,
So some of that's a thank you. Some of that is the reaction on the other side where I don't need any response, but I see the reaction and the outcome on the other side that brings a smile or a tear for joy or whatever that may be, um, that keeps us motivated and moving and progressing. The fact that we can affect lives in some way, shape, or form, leaving that legacy in some way, shape, or form is pretty critical to me. Because I've been blessed to have uh, previous generations that has done that for me, to where they didn't need praise, but they just saw the outcome and they saw the joy and they saw the the success of someone else that they helped kind of, whether that was just kicking them behind the seats, like, hey man, get your ass in gear, or it was that pep talk or that showing up to a ball game, whatever that may be. Just those still little small victories that can be considered. Um, but yeah, I think as a human being, you think back to the psychology, uh, the the number one thing that that infants actually learn, and this is a study that I read years ago, was the word no and their name. And so no obviously has that negative connotation and it comes with a different emotion, but then their name actually elevates that. So they love to hear their name being said or being called or being announced in some way, shape, or form. And so just think about that. It's like when someone calls on you by name, what does that mean? What does that mean to you? What is that? Are you up for the challenge? Are you up for the opportunity? Are you up for the reward? In some cases, if you live off those rewards, and I think by default we are, because as infants, before we even know anything, that's a reward that my name was called and I'm here to come through. And so I think that's a pretty in-depth question, but it's just some of the first things that come to mind.
yeah, I've heard of Andrew Tate talking about like be a name, not a number. A lot of people they have a disdain for Andrew Tate for whatever the reason is, but he does say some smart things sometimes. And one of the things that really resonated with me was exactly that was be a name. Like try to become something that is your name. Like maybe you don't like your name. Maybe you don't really care for your ancestry. Maybe you don't really have that family that's around you that is a community that helps you understand like what it is to be that man before you are. And so you have to figure that out for yourself. And in one of the first podcasts that I did with Kyrie Oliver, we talked about some of these identity shapers, like the things that really make you who you are, right? Why do you
Mhm.
have facial hair? Why do you not have facial hair? Why are you aspiring to be a professional football player? Why are you aspiring to be a professional artist? Some of these identity shapers. And then when you're not able to do that thing anymore, where like maybe you're an artist and then you lose your hand and now you can't do art anymore, you can maybe figure out a different form of art, maybe a different like medium of art, but that thing that you used to do is no longer the thing that you are anymore. And now what is that? How
Mhm.
does that identity shaper impact your life now as a character of who you are? So a lot of people they center their character around being a business owner, or center their character around I only get 4 hours of sleep, or center their character around I'm out here grinding while my kids are wondering where I'm at. And a lot of those identity shapers end up being a negative connotation to the world around us. But to us, it feels like our cup is being full. It
Yeah.
feels like we're filling that cup up. And then when we get to the top of the mountain and we see that sign that says, now what? We're looking at our cup and we're like, this thing's supposed to be full. I don't have a full cup and I don't understand why. Do you have any information or do you have any advice or any feedback for people that don't understand why they don't have a full cup after they feel like they've ascended that mountain of success?
Well, I think I do have a couple examples where um, success can actually become an addiction, which
Mm,
actually becomes a dopamine response that unfortunately is not sustainable. And so, what that means is that they can't enjoy being here and now and where they're currently at. The fact that they're getting their next fix, it's like an addict. It's like a physical addiction that creates this need for more and more and more. I think entrepreneurship is key in making sure that that is achievable, and we all aspire to do better and do more. But it comes down to where you can only get so many highs before the body just relies on them, and that's your only motivation. It's no different than, friends of mine that gone to many of these rehabs that are here in these areas that can actually drive a lot of great results and success and support. But what happens is that they just rely on that high, that motivation, the hype, let's get in here and let's fix this problem and let's go out there and tackle the world. And as soon as they walk out of that building for the hour or the day or the week, even in some of these cases, they lose it because it's not sustainable. And so, what is that dopamine fix in this situation? It's actually sitting back where meditation comes into play and prayer and understanding and being present in the actual moment that allows us to actually have peace and understanding of those opportunities that were currently already achieved, and then to then identify for that next phase and step. And it doesn't actually have reckless decisions that go along with it because you're so eager to get past a certain stage. You got to go and gain more and more and more, that it ends up being reckless decisions. You're not slowing down and really looking at your overall environment and seeing what the pros and cons and liabilities are along the way. Um, the other example that would be is probably a little bit kind of different way to comment on this. Um, One thing that I have witnessed personally is I grew up in a small town, yeah, small town Arizona. I've lived and worked in 27 different states across the US. And what I've found is that there's really four demographics of people. And this is actually, unfortunately, income drives a lot of this behavior. You've got the lower income, let's just call it poor folks, that we find that they are humble, they're giving, they are appreciative. Um, they have a lot of heart that we all know and hear. That's why we see a lot of this in some of these third world countries where they'll take the shirt off their back in that regard. You have the middle class, which I'll come back to in a second, and then you actually have kind of the first successors that start seeing some a decent bank account, can avoid, can enjoy some things in life, and then you have the elite. But this middle class, what I found is that they now have an opportunity where they have a higher income stream, but they don't have the experience and they don't actually have the maturity to understand how that looks. And so these are the guys that typically are showboating. They're the ones that are typically looking down on the lower class that, hey, I'm bigger, I'm smarter, I'm richer, I'm going to flaunt my things and that and the other. And then you actually have, the first successors that have things, and in turn, what do? They actually go and share and present and elevate and motivate and be mentors in that position. And what I found is that middle class, I've seen that more often than not, to where um, they spend unnecessarily. It's a flaunting situation. They're typically looking for that dopamine fix because it's their first sign of success. So they get that rush and they want to keep going for it. But they're reckless in that regard because they're just not patient. They're not sitting back and actually enjoying the environment and actually appreciating where they came from. That low cost, the poor actually brought you up and influenced you along with that first successors. And I think it's important to really self-identify through that. Super
Yeah.
nuts.
It's always funny because the guys that have the most success financially, materialistic wise, they always come back down to base camp. Then
Hmm.
once they reach that pinnacle of success or whatever that is to them, they always come back down to community collaboration and creativity. Like, what can I create? Who can I collaborate with? What soup
Yeah.
kitchen can I help out? Who can I donate to? What church can I give back to? What family can I feed this Christmas or whatever the case may be? But it always seems that way. Like when you have those people that are on the ascent, they typically feel like they need to step on others to get up the mountain quicker, and they don't
Hmm.
realize that everybody's kind of on the same climb. You're not
Right.
going to get there any faster. There's no elevator. There's not like stairs that you can take. It's you're on the mountain with everybody, and they're there next to you. And it's actually better if you collaborate with them and share resources than it is to actually step on them. A lot of these guys, including myself, including you probably, a lot of us have family that remain at base camp. Some of them didn't even like
Yeah.
show up to base camp. Some of them never have the desire to. And so
Yeah.
those people matter just as much because they do give us the perspective of humility and being able to step back and kind of like see the world for what it is. And also just kind of like weigh the pros and cons of what failure might look like. Me personally, I've learned a lot from failure. I've learned a lot more from failure than I have from success.
Hmm.
I've seen people in my circle who just constantly failed over and over and over. And it's like, okay, well, let's not use it as a demon. Let's figure out what happened, right? Let's figure out like why you failed. What was the thing that came up during that season in your life where you just like deemed this was failure? Like you didn't necessarily fail, but you were just like, this is where I quit. And that has always been an interesting factor to me is, family is one thing where if you feel like you need more, your health seems to start to decline in that regard. If you feel like you need more bigger boats, or if you need a faster car, if you need more trips or more vacations, or the bigger boat or the faster car, then you start seeing negative health implications. You start seeing higher cortisol levels, worse sleep. You don't necessarily take care of your body. You don't have time to exercise. You're too busy working. You're too busy grinding for that next thing to keep up with the Joneses, and then your health takes a hit, and then you don't realize how fast time goes by until you get to the end of that road, and you're like, damn, man, like I'm already 65 years old and my health is gone. Like, what do I do
Yeah.
now? you know um it's definitely addiction. It's 100% an addiction. The people that are on the ascent, though, I don't necessarily want to say that they're bad people. I just think that they have a different perspective on what being good looks like, and those people will eventually figure out what that is when they get to the top of whatever success looks like to them. But for
Yeah.
you, what does success look like for you?
Yeah. That's a loaded question. Um, I think success actually comes down to a daily basis. I don't think it comes down to a bank account or home or things or anything like that. I think it comes down to your conscience. It comes down to your integrity. Um, you have the ability to like put your head down on your pillow at the end of every night and say, I did everything I possibly can. Um, that's success to me.
hmm Yeah, I agree
So
100%. I always
yeah, I
check
mean,
off like the health, wealth, family, and legacy boxes. I try
mhm,
to think about those as if you were like a clown in a circus and you were spinning plates. And one of the plate was health, one of the plate was wealth, one of the plates were family, one of the plates was legacy. And the audience that you have that are watching you, your family, friends, the community that you've developed, the people that are your haters, the people that are your motivators, right? That's your audience. And if you show
yep,
up to that performance and you're not able to actually perform and spin the plates will break, or at the very least they'll be wobbly. And people aren't here to see plates breaking or wobbly plates. They're here to see you perform correctly and execute at an elite level. And
yeah,
so I think a lot of people hold themselves kind of accountable for not performing at an elite level all the time. You kind of
mhm,
create this perfectionist syndrome where it's like, if I'm not able to do it perfect, then I'm not going to do it at all. And so naturally, they just don't do anything that could actually benefit their life in a health way, benefit their family. They just dive into business. And you mentioned that a lot of it is like financial based. A lot of it is, economic driving. Do you live in a nice house? Do you have a nice car? Who are you
yeah,
judged by? A lot of these families, unfortunately, are very harsh on their own. They're
mhm,
like, why aren't you doing more? You're 30 years old. Why don't you have kids? Why don't you have a family? Why don't you travel more? Why don't you have a bigger house? Why don't you succeed more? You know,
yeah,
with these people that are climbing, and you mentioned that middle class, I think that's where a lot of that comes from. I think that's where the pressure of I'm doing more than you comes from because they're kind of projecting, right? And so how do you deal with those people who are projecting onto you? Obviously, in the solar industry, we have that a ton where it's like they sell 50 deals, but they're unethical deals. And it's like, well, I mean, you did it, but like you
yeah.
did it in an incorrect way also. Let's talk about that. What do you recommend for people to kind of step back, eat some humble pie, be self-aware, and not necessarily need to flex all the time so much. Maybe flex in different ways even.
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost is self-identifying, kind of what your strengths and weaknesses are as you're starting to progress through a career base in general. Because you brought up a key point as some of these sales guys coming in, everybody sees that next level. I want to be a manager, a regional manager, a VP, because the title and the know-how it looks like success. In all reality, I've got so many examples where sales guys make more money than me.
Hmm.
And sometimes that's okay. And for that reason, businesses need sales guys and businesses need leadership and businesses need entrepreneurial, partnerships and other eager and creative minds along the way. But if it didn't involve the entire stack, we wouldn't have a opportunity at all.
Right.
So being self-aware of where your physical strengths are, yeah, you might want to tip your toe in the water along that way. But that's what it kind of comes down to is being able to kind of create your own path. So starting at that sales rep level, you do run your own business at that point because
Hmm.
it's you and the world. And for that reason, you can look at all the mentors in the world that are above you, and then you have the ability to self-identify whether or not this is accurate. Is it's ethical? Is it duplicatable? Is it something that I want to aspire to be as an individual? And you just got to sit back and ask that question. In some cases, I've been in those opportunities where that answer was no. I've won 6 trips to Hawaii through different sales opportunities that I've had in my life. I did not go to either of them because when I looked at those leadership and the owners in the eye, when they did not ethically compensate me and or my teams along the way, and they wanted to go showboat me over in Hawaii, I still earned it and I still could have gone, but I actually still had ethics to the point is like, hey, do the right thing, or I'm just not going to align myself with this business on a future basis. Because me showing up actually makes it look as if I'm supporting this to the overall ecosystem that is crumbling and challenging. And unfortunately, every single one of those 6 companies are out of business.
Yep.
So my wife gives me a hard time because I'm, 41 years old and I've never been to Hawaii. I've been to a lot of other places, but it's because I did not want to align with those people in that regard. So hold your ground, do what's right in those scenarios. We've had I use a lot of examples. We get door-to-door guys at our house all the time, and I love having those conversations. But I've had quite a few solar sales guys where I am yet to see um, one of them tell me a truthful pitch.
Mm.
I was blown away on how bad it was. And every time those guys, I sit back, listen. They don't know who I am from Adam. I sit back and listen. I actually then let them know who I am, and I say, "Hey, let me help you." And I usually spend an extra 10 minutes to an hour with these kids, where I have nothing to gain, right? I just more or less want to make sure this is covered. And interesting enough, because it's a small world, I know the CEOs of every single one of these companies that these guys knock on the door from. So what I do is I try to support from the bottom, give them some new pitches. One kid actually came back, said, "Hey man, thanks for the pitch. I just sold 2 deals."
Nice.
And because he didn't have to show up to the door and say, "Hey, did you get this net metering agreement in the mail?" Like nobody sends you a net metering agreement in the freaking mail, dude.
Hmm.
Especially my own city. And then I call the CEOs and say, "Hey, man, I just want to give you a heads up. I figured you'd want to hear some of this because that way you can break this down and identify where the challenges are. But here's the exact pitch that I just got on my front door. Um, get this fixed
Yeah.
because for one, it's illegal. You're the one that's ultimately has liability. Attorneys generals, uh, it's consumer protection, RSA. I mean, list goes on and on. These guys will freaking jump on you if they found out this is the crap that's being duplicated within your business." And I call them as friends because I have great relationships with a lot of these folks. But I call them also as a mentor and also a kind warning that this cannot continue because you will be gone for the sake of this is not duplicatable in any way, shape, or form. And these guys have been well received. I've had to make a few phone calls to one individual company here in Utah about 6 different times in the last 12 months. But Ultimately, we'll see what happens with that one.
Well,
But
I think
yeah,
that what's cool about that
that's
is like
great.
ethics and morality leads into legacy. And a lot of people, they don't understand legacy because they never actually established the self-development aspect of ethics and morality. Like what actually is a thing that you're going to stand on when it comes to your belief and value system. And when you help somebody with that, where if I'm on the doors and I'm a new guy and I'm pitching something that I feel could be a little bit unethical, or even I know that it's a lie, right? Like I know this isn't true, but you want me to go out and say that, you're not going to have as much success because you aren't going to be able to portray it as a factual statement. So
Yeah.
even in your character, subconsciously, you're like, this isn't the truth. And naturally, people are going to pick up on that, especially if they've been in the industry for 19 years. But even if they have,
Well, I mean, you got to look back at this too, is the word legacy. A lot of people misinterpret that when that actually is achieved.
mm,
But look at this way. I mean, it's a sad story, but I've got a friend that had their daughter just pass away from cancer.
wow,
Um, 9 years old. That girl had a legacy. She's 9.
yeah,
You have a legacy at any age and stage of your entire life.
mhm,
And a lot of people say is like, well, I can't place a legacy. I'm 16 years old out here. I'm 18 years old out here. I'm 31. I'm 41. I'm 50. I'm 80, whatever it may be. They think this legacy is this, gray haired, Dos Equis looking dude. And that's where it comes from. Right.
yeah,
But man, these kids are legacies. Take accountability for that and put that pressure on yourself because you're being looked at by your mentors and your opportunities and your environment that can really just expand anything. It will literally put the world at your feet if you start taking responsibility at that stage.
100%. And I think that is one of the more important things to do before any of these other things that we've talked about. You
Mhm.
should lead with legacy. I think about this in regards to like when I pick up people's trash when I'm outside and in private. I'm just walking around by myself. Nobody's there to see me do it. But I
Mhm.
pick up trash because I know that it's important for my legacy to do so if I happen to be in this green energy, renewable energy community where I
Mhm.
feel like I need to do something for the planet. It's an internal, and again, I would lean on more divination. It is this internal divination, this calling almost that this is where I belong. And so I need to be a leader, a steward in this industry. And even in private, I have to become that.
Yeah.
ET talks about this often. Eric Thomas, motivational speaker, one of the top three, I think, top two speakers in the world. He says, like, everybody wants to be great in public, but in private, you're average or worse,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes you're not even average. Sometimes you don't even meet the average. And that's a problem. And you should focus on that and build your character off of that because,
Mhm.
like, you have some problems that we need to, like, look at that are underlying inside of your soul. And so I appreciate you sharing that. Right before we wrap up here on this podcast, the last question I'd have for you is obviously you own a battery company. When you're looking for power in life, that energy in life that you need that next 10% or 20% to get through the day. What do you lean on for that? Are you exercising a bunch? You said meditation, breath work, community collaboration. What else are you doing to try to get that extra 10% of energy throughout the day?
Yeah. I kind of making some shifts on that for this calendar year, but I'm a religious guy. So I do have that in the tank. It's always got something in there to give me a little extra booster, a little rocket fuel in that regard. So I heavily lean on that, and that's been great for us and our family. So for many, many years. So
Awesome answer, man.
I kind of look at it to the point is that there's hierarchy in everything in the world. If you look at from Earth, the world, the stars, the sun, the sky, everything that crawls on this earth, there's actually some level of dominion in some way, shape, or form. And I don't care if you're religious or not, but at the end of the day, if you just look at the overall ecosystem of dominion, why am I so naive to think that I'm at the top of the food chain?
Mm,
And so I know that I've received power from someone that has uh, me in their best interest and dominion, and I pull from it.
that's a cool answer, man. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I agree. I think even if you happen to not be a religious person, I think there is still a lot of energy to be pulled from the different facets of what those informational books could be. You know,
Hmm.
I don't want to say I'm a theologist, but I've had my own journey of theology, and I've looked into different religions, Mormonism, Judaism, even Jehovah Witness. Like I've been to that church and got to experience what that was like with the people that that actually go to that church. Grew up with them, went to school with them, love those people. And so the cool thing about that is like there's a lot of information out there. People have existed for a very long time. So even without religion, you could still get some golden nuggets from those things where it's like maybe you
Oh,
don't agree with all of it, but there is some stuff in there where it's like if you just ask questions, you're gonna get answers, and then you could do with those answers what you wish. And
yeah.
so that's a fantastic way to get a lot of energy for your day is to like step back and maybe like try to understand where you're lacking clarity. You know, when you're going through things like losing your 9-year old due to cancer, or like, you know, even if you have happen to have like your son, I believe it's your son, right, that has the Dandy Walker syndrome.
Hmm.
So even if you happen to have a son that has that Dandy Walker syndrome, like that's still a lot on the mind. That still causes a lot of mental confusion sometimes and obstructions of thought. And you don't have the clarity that you once did before any of that stuff happened. And now you kind of have to try to overcome some of that and find new energy and wake up being able to have energy to move on with your day. Uh,
Hmm.
I found religious context is oftentimes where I go to if anybody doesn't know the answer, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like I can't find like Jim Rohn talking about it and giving me hype for the seasons or something, or Tony
Yep.
Robbins hasn't really stepped on that quite yet or whatever. I can go back and kind of formulate my own answers and like try to weed through what that means for myself. You know,
Hmm.
how do you weed through that yourself when it comes to like stuff that you just may not understand? Like, you said you have mentors and stuff that you lean on for that?
Yeah, so we definitely got mentors in my life. There's so many examples. You've used the word season a few different times, and we make this joke here inside of Storage Power where we're on the 14th season, just like a series on Netflix.
Hmm.
There's always a banger at the end of the other season. But those seasons all come with different challenges, opportunities, mentors, um, and just different pools of knowledge and experience that you can pull from. That's why you always want to keep progressing. That's why relationships are so key. That's why the people business is so important for me, is to where, um, I'm working with a buddy of mine. His name's Alan, and we haven't talked in probably like 5 or 6 years. I mean, the one time we caught up together was he had toilet paper in stock during COVID. So I drove to his house and bought a freaking pack of toilet paper.
That's
Uh,
awesome.
but now we're catching back up, and now that season is perfect for the task at hand and different opportunities that we have in front of us right now as business and other business opportunities we're investing into. But um, just be keen and never burn a bridge. If you have no idea when that person or that opportunity is going to need the right, lock armed team to make that happen. So
Heck yeah, man. Well, thank you so much for all of that, dude. I know this has actually went by really fast somehow. I don't know, with the hour which just flew by. But I definitely appreciate talking with you and always meeting up, of course. I look forward to seeing you again in person. But thank you for being on the podcast, man. I think it's very important for a lot of people to understand the seasons where like winter is always going to come, like Jim Rome says. It comes every single year. You could put your thumb on the calendar for it. It's going to
yep,
happen. You're going to see it happen. And right after that, you got spring. And then right after that, you got fall. And right after that, or I'm sorry, right after that, you got summer. And then right after that, you got fall. And
yep,
so it's going to happen every single year, 365, every single year. It's going to happen. You're going to have seasons, unless you live in California or something.
yeah,
The season still technically exists, just not for you weather-wise.
yeah,
But yeah, man, that's something you need to look at when it comes to business, when it comes to life, health, wealth, family, and legacy. You're going to have different seasons. Sometimes your health is in a winter season, sometimes it's in a summer season, and you look jacked.
yeah,
But you have to be able to go with the ebbs and flows of life and always find new energy. So thank you so much, Mr.
yeah,
Everett. I appreciate you being on the
yeah,
podcast,
man.
man.
Appreciate you. This is getting great. So appreciate the cause and what you guys are working on this. So look forward to seeing you guys in the very near future.
I appreciate that, man. If you all ever need a battery, I'm telling you, look into Stores AI. Watt Hub also. I know you're part owner of that company, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Watt
So
renewables, all commercial, industrial, utility scale. Yep.
yeah, commercial solar is going to be that next precipice of the solar industry where batteries are getting better, technology is getting better, solar panels are getting bigger, they're getting better. The technology is just becoming absolutely insane. So
Hmm.
commercial will be the next facet of what people step into here in the solar industry in a mass scale. And
Yeah.
you guys are already ahead of that curve quite a
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah. And our channel partner program will help you do it right because, man, there's a lot of navigation on that space. So
Ons, it's a lot different than
appreciate it, man.
residential energy.
Yeah. Way different.
Right on. Well, guys, I appreciate you. Thank you again for another episode, and I look forward to the next one. Chat with you
All right.
soon.
Take care. Cheers.
See ya.
Bye.